Hello and welcome to today's class. Today we are doing advanced yoga with a focus on backbending. So you probably won't need any props for this other than your yoga mat, but if you are hovering somewhere between intermediate and advanced, then it's always a good idea to have a couple of yoga blocks and maybe even a yoga strap. You might also need some additional cushioning for your knees and access to a wall, but you'll just see how you go as we get along. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start facing forward to the top of our mat, and we're just going to start by arching down and rolling up. Nice and easy. Throwing the head back, really focusing on the vertebra of the spine, warming them up. Good. So we're going to move fairly quickly through our warm-up sequence so that we can really get into some more advanced moves. All right, last two, and last one. Let's hold it at the bottom and just bend and straighten those knees. If your legs are still warming up and you're not able to straighten them completely, don't worry about it. Just go to where you feel comfortable. Bend and straighten, nice and easy, fairly brisk pace so that we can warm up. Good, okay, let's walk forward into our downward facing dog. And I just want you to rise up and down onto the feet, onto the toes, so that we can get them nice and warm. Good. And then let's just press up onto the tops of the toes for a nice toe and ankle stretch. Now, if this isn't happening for you, don't worry about it. Just flip the toes back over and continue holding on a rise or a demi point. I also like to push my heels backwards and then forwards again, backwards and forwards. You may want to bend into the knees to really stretch out the ankles and come back up onto demi point one more time. Good. Okay, I'm going to lift my left leg up into the sky and I'm just going to do some ankle circles. So rotating one way and the other. Good. And then I'm going to just bend my left leg and do some nice big hip circles. Really opening up the hips, making them nice and juicy. And change directions. Good. 3, 2, 1, and then just straighten that in your down dog splits. Let's just rise and lower a few times, building up some heat now in the shoulders and in the supporting leg. Good. And now I'm just going to take my leg over the side of me, see if I can see my toes, and I'm just going to play around with kind of just moving my body in different ways, really opening the hip and then kind of arching more into the lower back, opening the hip, arching more. And now as I look at my toes, I'm going to drop back into wild thing, right up high onto my demi point. I'm going to take this arm up over behind me into a full wild thing. From there, we're just going to come down and lift back up and come down. So I'm lifting and lowering the hips and just cycling through some of these movements. All right, if it's available to you, you're actually going to flip this hand over into a wheel position. Your legs are still in wild thing and you're just pushing your rib cage up towards the ceiling. Drop the head back and down to the floor if you can, and just hold it there. If it's available to you, you're going to straighten the leg that's already straight. Just try and extend that knee as much as you can. I like to flex the foot and really push back into my shoulders. If this is too much, you can keep the leg bent, and you can also just stay in a regular wild thing. Good. When you've had enough, we're going to flip back. You really want to aim for your right hand beneath your right shoulder, and we're in a side plank pose. Now you can do any variation you want. You can then lift the leg up into tree. I'm going to grab hold of my left big toe and extend up towards the sky. Push the floor away from you at the bottom, and then I just like to point and flex my top toes. And that just gives me a slightly different stretching sensation in my inner thigh. And then roll forward and come into a low lunge. And then from our low lunge, keeping the hips down nice and low, I'm just going to bend and straighten my back knee. So really tucking in the lower stomach, bend and straighten that back knee. I'm trying to get a nice stretch on my hip flexor. Warming up because we're going to be going into splits. 3, 2, 1. I'm just going to push back into triangle and down back into lunge. So cycling between these two movements. I find this to be a great warm-up for the hips. And it just kind of warms up my whole body as well. 3, 2, and last one, hold it up. Turn your back toes to face the front and you're going to come into a triangle position. So here's where you could be up onto some blocks. You could just press against your shin bone. You could have the hand on the inside or the outside. I prefer the outside. Extend up, open up the chest, and we're just going to bend the back leg. Bend and straighten that back leg. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Hold it there. And now we're just going to do some arm circles. So although it's an advanced class, that doesn't mean there can't be simple moves. We do want to warm up the rib cage and the shoulders. Good. Change directions. 3, 2, 1. Let's do one more. Good. And now we're going to cartwheel the arms down and twist up into easy twisting lunge. So facing the other direction now. Drop those hips nice and low. And let's again do arm circles the other side. 5, 4, 3, 2, and change directions. 5, 4, 3, 2, and hold it at the top. Good. And now let's deepen the twist. We're going to come up and I'm going to take my right elbow to my left knee and I'm really going to twist, find my balance, bring my hands into prayer and push down. So you want your hands to be in the center of your sternum, not towards the left. So the more you push down, the more they center and the more you find a nice deep twist in your upper back. Stay down low in your lunge. Inhale to create space. Exhale, twist into that space. Look up to the ceiling. Good, and then slowly coming out of that. And now I'm going to come down into a lizard lunge. So we're going to rock forward and back, high up on the toes of the back leg. Now obviously if this is not available to you, you can just bring both hands on the inside of your left foot and carry on rocking there. Otherwise we're down in our lizard pose to get a nice deep stretch into the left hip. Good. Now, if this is enough for you, you're going to carry on with this and you're just going to hold it coming in and out as you need. If you want a little bit more of a challenge, I'm just going to slide my left shoulder underneath my left foot. And then I'm going to kind of lean into that so that I can feel the compression as my leg compresses my shoulder. I'm going to come back into that lizard lunge position. And again, this might be enough for you. If it is, you can stop right there. Otherwise, for a challenge, get your weight into your hands, lift up onto the toes of the left foot, and start to just wiggle your toes forward, really putting weight into your hands. Wiggle the toes forward until your foot comes right up off the floor. And even if it's just hovering or you're just feeling getting your weight into your hands, and that's where you're at for today, no problem. Otherwise, we're going to do 4 lifts and lowers. So I really want you to point this foot and then stretch the leg as much as you can. Point down, stretch up. Point down, really stretch that leg up. Make that thigh work. Last one. Now, if it's available to you, you're going to do 4 push-ups. If not, you can bring the leg down and you can just do the 4 push-ups like so or like so. All right? Otherwise, you're joining me. We've got our leg up and we're going to do 4 push-ups. Keep stretching that left leg. 4, all the way down. 3,
2, 1. Really good. And come back into your downward facing dog and just breathe. Take a moment. That was pretty intense early on in the class. So just feel the body, pause and breathe. Inhale and strong exhale. Completely empty the lungs. Don't leave any stale air and energy in your body. All right, just to reset the spine, let's rise up on the toes, ripple forward into plank, and then do a cow tilt in the pelvis and arch your way back to downward dog. Let's do a couple of those. Rise up and ripple forward, plank, cow tilt, back into downward dog. 2 more. Good. And back. 1 more. And back. All right, let's do everything on the right hand side. So lifting my right leg up this time, and I'm just going to do my ankle circles. So make sure those circles are nice and big and juicy to really warm up the feet and the toes. Change directions. Keep breathing. Good. And let's do some nice big knee circles. Down, out and around. Waking up those hip joints. We're going to come back to these sort of movements throughout the class, and we'll just be sort of intensifying them each time and change directions. Good. So after this, we're going to go into our wild thing. 3 more. 2. Last one. Good. Really stretch that leg. Let's just rise up and down a few times on the toes in your down dog splits, trying to keep your top leg as straight as possible, even if there's a slight bend in the bottom leg. Good. And now let's just bend that knee, looking over. Try and see your toes in your peripheral vision, and just kind of work with your spine, kind of melt the body in different sort of ways, going into the lower back, feeling that arch, looking over, side bend, so kind of going between more of a side bend and more of a back bend. And eventually we look at our toes behind us and we drop them down to the floor. Wild thing, lifting that chest and hips up to the ceiling. Maybe you can drop the head right back. And let's just lower and lift those hips. Good. So this is more of a dance kind of movement, which is why it feels so good. Keep breathing. Last one. If you can, you're going to reach that arm all the way behind you for a wheel. Push the floor away from you. See if you can extend the leg that's already straight. Keep it perfectly straight. If not, if it's too much in the shoulders too early on, keep the leg nice and bent. Otherwise, extend. I like to flex the foot, push into my shoulders to really open them up. And breathe. Inhale. And exhale. Let's flip into our side plank. So just making sure your left hand is directly beneath your left shoulder, and whichever variation you did previously, so maybe it was tree, otherwise do the same variation. I'm grabbing my big toe, and you do have to balance here. Push the floor away from you, lift those hips up high. I like to point and flex my top foot, just to feel different sensations. Good. Last one. And now very carefully, I'm rolling my hips, holding onto my toe, coming into my lunge. And just that level of control is a nice way to work the body. Good, let's just bend and straighten the back knee. So I'm keeping my hips down nice and low, really stretching into the hip flexor of the left side. Good. And pull in the lower abdominals, and that will really intensify the stretch in the left leg. And now let's push back and forwards, triangle to lunge. So warming up those hips. And these simple movements do pack a punch. I do this every single day. This little sequence right here, this is how I practice yoga every day. 3 more, 2, last one. All right, let's turn those toes in. Whether you used a block or not, just do the same thing on the side, and we're extending up into triangle, revolving the rib cage up to the ceiling, and bending and straightening the back leg. Good. So I've got my left leg at the back, and I'm feeling a nice stretch in my inner thigh and behind my knee on my right side. 3, 2, 1. Good. And let's just do our arm circles. 4, 3, 2, and change. 4, 3, 2, and last one. Good. Cartwheel the hands down. Easy twisting lunge on the other side. Lift up tall, really open that rib cage up to the ceiling. And arm circles for 4, 3, 2, 1. Change directions. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. And let's go into our twist. So coming up higher, left elbow across right knee this time, hands into prayer, and push down. Aiming to get those hands in the center of your sternum. Inhale, create space. Exhale, move into the space. Drop those hips down. Nice deep bend in the front knee. Twist more and more. Good, and coming down. All right, hands come to the inside of the right foot. And remember, you've got levels here. You can stay here the whole time and do everything we do in this position. Otherwise, you can come down onto your elbows. And let's just rock forward and back. Good. Breathe. Rocking forward and back. Now, we're going to move our right shoulder underneath our right knee. If it's too much, you just continue with these rocks. Maybe you come down, rock for a bit. So come up and then go back down again, and just practice really opening up this hip joint on the right. Otherwise, you're joining me. I'm just getting my right shoulder underneath my right knee and leaning my weight forward into my hands to feel the compression of the right shoulder. And now I'm straightening my back leg. Good. Really feeling the weight into my hands here, pushing the floor away from me. Lift up the heel of the right foot. Now, if you can, you start to, and I'm just going to move over, you start to wiggle this foot forward, the right foot forward, until it comes straight up. And maybe it won't be completely straight today, but it's something you work towards. I'm pointing my foot as much as I can and extending my knee, pulling my kneecaps up. 4 lifts and lowers. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4 push-ups. Remember, you can do this without your shoulder underneath your knee. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. And let's push back into down dog and hold it there for a moment. Breathe. Walk it out. Strong exhale. Breathe out all that stale air, all that trapped energy. And again, let's just do these ripples, rising up onto the toe, rippling into plank, cow tilt the pelvis, push back, down dog. So just working through the whole spine. Good. 2 more. Last one. Push back. Okay, now we have to get to the top of our mat, but we're going to do it in this way. So we're going to walk our hands right in to sort of forward fold position, and then we're going to practice little toe taps to start off with. So you're going to bring the hands slightly forward like a mini downward dog. You're just going to practice rocking right up onto the toes so that the shoulders come right over the wrists, like you're going to do a handstand press. Okay, so just feeling how you have to use your abdominal muscles to create that contraction in the front of the body. And then from there, we're just going to tap toe to wrist, if you can. Now you have to really use your hip flexors here, nice and strong to do this. So perhaps your foot will hover somewhere in the middle and it won't make it all the way. That's absolutely fine. Just honor where you're at today and know that yoga is a journey. And even me, I feel like I have such a long way to go, and I have many things I'm still working on. So taking it to wherever you're at. Good. And let's start to walk now. So we're going to tap and put down, and tap and put down. And then we find ourselves in a forward bend. And we're just going to drop the head down and slowly roll up 1 vertebra at a time. All right, good. So that was the warm-up sequence done. Let's move on to the next section. So I'm going to face you, but you can stay at the top of your mat. I want you to bring your arms up over your head, interlace the fingers and release just the index finger. Now I really want you to think about not having a banana spine. We want to really create a nice straight spine, neutralizing the pelvis and taking any arch out of the lower back. And then the shoulders, we don't want them dropped. We want them somewhat lifted, not too much, but just to create space in the scapula. And from this position, you're going to bend over to the right. So a half moon pose, a Bikram half moon pose. So we're trying to get our left shoulder to lift up to the ceiling, left shoulder back, right hip forward, and really think about creating space in the left rib cage. So we're not just collapsing over, we're going up and then over. Good. Breathe into that side. Inhale, exhale. And an inhale brings you up. And exhale. I like to switch the grip in my fingers. And then exhale over to the other side. Good. So this time you want to bring right shoulder forward, left hip back. Good. And breathe. Think about keeping to lift that right armpit up to the ceiling instead of just side bending over. Inhale. And exhale brings you up. Good. Okay, back at the top of your mat, we're going to go into a back bend. So you're going to drop your head back, look with your eyes first, and then start to look backwards to the wall behind you, trying to keep the bend of the spine more in the upper back, so you can push the hips a little forward, but not so much that you're just collapsing into the upper back. And then follow with the arms and the hands. Breathe. Look back. And then slowly coming up, head comes up last. All right, before we go into our forward bend, I'm going to release my arms. Now for this next part, we're going to be dropping all the way back to the floor into a wheel. If that's not available for you yet, you can always go up to a wall and walk yourself down into a wheel, or you can lie down on your mat, put your hands at your ears and lift yourself up into a wheel. So either of those variations are fine. Otherwise, you're going to join me in a drop back. So I'm still working on having my legs perfectly hip distance apart and parallel. So for the moment, my legs are about mat width apart and slightly turned out, which over time I'm correcting to become parallel. So just being aware of where you're aiming for. Arms come up, same process. So we don't ever start without our arms. We want our fingertips to hit the floor first. Looking back, and I'm going to try and back bend as much as I can first. Strong, straight legs. Keep them straight as long as possible. And then at the end, bend and drop back smoothly and softly. Once I'm in my back bend, I try and walk my legs closer together, hip width apart and parallel. And then I just want you to feel where your wheel is at the moment. So if your arms are bent, I want you to try and straighten them and really kind of, instead of squeezing your scapula, doing the opposite, trying to create space between the scapula, roll the armpits in towards each other, push the hips up, and try to push with the feet so that the weight comes more into the shoulders. Good. What I like to do is I like to go up on my feet, walk my hands closer towards my feet, and then once I'm in position, lower my heels down and push the weight into my shoulders. Good, and just rocking there forwards and back so that I can feel where my body's at. And then maybe take the hands out a bit, and you might need to use a bit of a rocking motion to help push yourself up to standing. All right, let's take a moment to traction the spine, lift the arms up nice and tall, and then you're going to separate the hands and we're going to come forward with a nice flat back into a forward fold. So we're going really, really slow. I want the arms by the ears. Take a moment at 90 degrees and you're just going to grab opposite elbows, and I want you to now think about coming down with a straight flat back. So we're not rounding the spine, we're lengthening it. So think crown of the head is making a long line for the floor. So taking any curve out of the lower back. Keep reaching the crown of the head towards the top of your mat. Lengthen that spine, so going really, really slow. And when we get to the bottom, separating the hands, and as if you're trying to reach them up a wall behind you, hands, palms touching that imaginary wall. And then again, pushing the crown of the head down towards the floor, lengthening the spine as opposed to rounding it. Good, hold it there. Inhale. And exhale, bend the knees, chair pose. Good. So hold it there. Chair. Inhale. Good. Clasp the hands, flip the palms up to the ceiling. We're going to inhale, come into more of a parallel position. Exhale, up into chair, look up towards the ceiling. Inhale, parallel. Exhale, look up to the ceiling. Inhale. And exhale, up to the ceiling. Release the hands, forward fold. Good. Lift halfway, and you're going to step or hop back into a plank position. Good. All right, we're going to take our left leg, and I'm just going to come over to the edge of my mat so that when I flip back into my wheel, I'll be on my mat. So I'm going to lift my left leg up again into down dog splits, and similar to what we did, except now we're going to open the hips in a different way. So I want you to move the hips into kind of a straddle position, looking underneath your left armpit, and then back into down dog splits. And keep going. Opening and closing the hips. Good. Just doing a couple of rounds of this movement to really mobilize the hip joints. 2 more. Last one. Good. And again, we're going to look over at our toes, and we're going to drop back into wild thing, but then we're going to flip, if it's available to you, all the way over into a wheel pose. All right, holding your wheel. And we're going to do a few variations here. So we're going to come up onto the toes, bring our feet together, and then I want you to push the chest up towards the ceiling and sink the hips down to the ground. So like you're trying to sit on a chair. Good. Trying to keep the elbows straight and push up. All right, with the hips lifted, get the weight onto the balls of the left foot. We're going to lift the right knee up to the ceiling. Look down at your hands for balance. If it's available to you, extend the legs straight up to the ceiling. Good, let's bring it down and place it just behind the left toes. Lift up the left leg, knee first. Really dig your weight into the right heel, into the right ball. Straighten the leg. Let's do 2 more just like that. Place the toes behind the others. Knee first, extend. And again, last one. Really working on a deep back bend here and strengthen the shoulders and come down. Good, let's flip it over onto the right side and then back into your downward dog. Take a moment, breathe. Good. All right, from here, we're going to ripple forward into our plank position. You're going to find your left leg, lifting it up into your down dog splits, and we're going to do some tri-tummy crunches. So we're going to come forward into plank, left knee goes into left shoulder. Then it's going to come to the middle and then cross over to the right. Extend back into down dog splits. Let's do that a few more times. Outside, middle, inside, and again. Outside, middle, inside, and again. Last one. Outside, middle, inside, and now let's just step the foot in between the hands and come down into your low lunge. All right, so this is where you might need some yoga blocks if your hips are a little bit tight. We're going to go into arrow lunge. So we're going to clasp the fingertips on top of the knee, and I'm going to keep my back, I'm going to dig my toes into the ground, and I'm going to extend my back leg. So I'm still kind of in a low lunge as far as my hips go, but then I've extended my back knee. And let's just rock forwards and backwards using the toes to do the rocking motion. Good. That's it. Now I'm going to lower my knee. I'm going to untuck my toes and I'm going to repeat this time by straightening the leg on the toes. Hold it there. And if it's available to you, you lift the arms up towards the sky for arrow lunge. Getting my hips down really nice and low, pulling in my navel to my spine and extending the back knee as much as I can. Good, and come down. All right, so you might need some additional cushioning for your knee. You could fold over your mat or get a little blanket or something just for some cushioning for your knee. And let's start with some hamstring curls. So in this nice low lunge, I've got my hands either on blocks or just to the side of me by my hips. I'm going to keep my foot flexed at the back. I'm just going to curl the hamstring right in to my pelvis. Good. Now when you're doing this, although you are arching into the lower back, I want you to support that arch by pulling in the lower abdominals and really squeezing the pelvic floor. Good. 3 more. 2. And last one. Let's point that foot. And now we're just going to come back into somewhat of a mermaid variation. So you're going to reach back for your foot on the big toe side. I like to press my other elbow against my knee for support. And we're just going to bring the foot in as close as we can to the hips. Inhale and exhale, kick back. Gently kick your foot back into your hand using about 20% effort. Inhale, exhale, kick back. Inhale, bring it in more. Exhale, kick back. And if it's available, you're going to bring the fingertips forward like the toes and bring the foot down to the ribs. Try and rotate to face the front again and hold it there. Good, and then slowly release. Good, and we're just going to take a moment to stretch that out. So you're going to go into a half split. And let's just windscreen wiper those toes. Good. So I'm just straightening my front leg now, and I'm using rotation right at the top of my left hip to windscreen wiper this foot. So I'm not just using the toes of the foot, I'm rotating from the very top of the leg. Good. All right, now comes a tricky part for the hamstrings. Let's come upright to balance, and already this could be challenging. We want to really zip up the core, push the hips forward, and lift the arms up by the ears. Flex the front foot nice and strong, and as far as possible, try and square your hips. So we want to pull right hip forward, left hip back. If you need to have a micro bend in your front leg, that's absolutely fine. You might need to have blocks nearby in case you lose your balance. So squaring the hips, lifting up nice and tall in the spine. Inhale, exhale, start to forward fold with a straight flat back. Remember, we are squaring those hips all the time, so you're going to really feel it in the hamstring in the left leg. Keep lengthening the spine, no rounding of the lower back, square those hips, come forward as much as you can, square the hips, square the hips, square the hips. Good, wherever you get to, and then hands come down. All right, good. Now we're going to move into a full split. So if this is not available to you, you'll have 2 blocks on either side of you, and you'll come down as low as you can. You're still getting all the benefits by not being flat on the floor. All right, so what I like to do with my split is I like to go really slow, and I like to keep my back foot flexed up on the toes, stretch the back leg, so both my feet are flexed. And you can see how I'm up off the floor and I'm squaring my hips. So we're bringing right hip forward, left hip back. Stretch that back leg. Feel that stretch. And slowly, with the hips nice and square, coming down, and I'm still staying up on my back toes, stretching my back knee. So I'm getting a massive stretch all the way down the quad here. Squaring those hips, keeping it nice and square. When I'm certain I've got it completely square, I then point the toes. So this is a nice new technique that I've started practicing to really help me get nice and square in my hips before I just drop into my split. All right, so from here we're just going to go into a spine twist just to make sure that we are in fact square. So if you've got your left leg forward, you're going to twist to the left. You're just going to take your left hand back to your right outer thigh and twist. Hold it there. Inhale, exhale, inhale, you want, you can even forward fold, place your right elbow outside your left leg, rest your head in your hand, and then come into a twist. So it's a bit deeper, feels really good. Otherwise, you're up higher, just practicing your split where you're at. Good, and then slowly unwind. Good. And then from here, we're just going to move into a pigeon. So I'm going to bring my front leg in towards my pelvis, still trying to bring my right hip down and forward. And we're just going to bend the back leg up. And just like we did previously, we're going to just stretch out the hip flexors. So I'm just going to bring my fingers to face forward like my toes, and I'm going to press my toes down towards my rib cage. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, and exhale. Hold it there. See if you can release any gripping that you might be doing in the muscles of the leg that you're stretching. See if you can try and just release up in the quad, breathe into the tight spots, be perfectly present, try not to run away from the discomfort or the pain, just kind of breathe into it. Good, and then we're going to go into a mermaid. So you can aim to get your right elbow wrapping around your foot, and then you can clasp your fingers together, kind of at waist height. If this is comfortable for you and you want more, you can reach the left arm up and overhead and clasp the fingers this way. And then you can play around with looking up, with looking back. And you can also gently kick your foot back into your elbow crease. And that's going to help you square the hips as well. If you want even more, you can go for a full grip. So I like to bring my toes in, grab with the other hand, reach the arm through and grab sort of on the outside. The arm is bent, I lift the elbow up to the ceiling, and then I'm in a flipped grip. Now from there you can either hold it or you can reach the other arm back, walk your fingertips down to your foot and holding the foot with both hands. If you want, you can drop your head back to touch your foot. Now in this position, I like to think about kicking my leg up to the ceiling so that it takes some of the compression out of my lower back and uses my hip flexors. Inhale, exhale, kick. And then slowly release, one hand at a time. Try not to let that foot bang back down. Good, hold it a moment. You can counter stretch by just twisting towards the left. So just unwind and undo all of that. Good, and let's do everything on the other side. So we're going to come into our downward dog and just walk it out for a moment. You have worked pretty hard. Good, so now I'm going to come over to my right so that I'll be on my mat for my wheel. I'm going to lift my right leg up towards the sky and I'm just going to do those rotations in the hip. So I'm moving into a straddle, looking underneath my right shoulder and then back into a downward dog split. And just moving through those rotations, really focusing on the right hip socket and visualizing the femur kind of rolling backwards and forwards in that position. Good, we've done enough. We're going to go into our wild thing. So looking back at our toes behind us, see them as much as you can, and then dropping back into your wild thing, positioning your feet onto the mat, and then if it's available to you, coming backwards into your wheel pose. Good. Holding wheel. Now we're going to try a few different things. So I'm still working on back flexibility, so I'm just going to move my feet out away from my hands a little bit and bring them a bit closer together. Now I'm going to sit down, bring my hips towards my heels, and then I'm going to extend my legs so that I'm really pushing into my shoulders. If that feels good, I bring the feet in a bit closer. Sink the hips down and then push into the shoulders. Bring the feet closer. Sink the hips down, push into the shoulders. And when I'm at my maximum, I bring my feet all the way together, sink the hips down and push and hold it. Good. And release. And now let's flip over towards
a side plank position, and then all the way back into our downward dog. And let's go into plank just to neutralize the spine. So just holding the spine straight, using abdominal strength, neutralizes the spine from a back bend. Good, let's go back into downward dog. Lift up the right leg and let's do those tri-tummy crunches. So forward into plank, right knee to right armpit, into the middle, and then to the left elbow. And again, up. Exhale. Inhale up. And exhale. Inhale. Last one. Exhale. Hover it in the middle and step the foot forward into a low lunge. All right, from there, I'm going to bring my hands up onto my knee, flex the back toes, and straighten the back leg. Rocking forward and back. Sink those hips down nice and low. Really feeling that stretching sensation, very intense stretching sensation in the left hip. Good. All right, bringing the back knee down, untucking the toes, and extend for arrow lunge. If this is good for you, bringing the hands up. Good, hold it there. Breathe. Inhale, stretch the back leg as much as you can. And exhale, come down. Good. Okay, I'm just going to place my cushioning underneath my back knee. You can double fold your mats or use your blankets. All right, and then bringing the hands either to blocks or down to the sides of your hips, flexing the back foot and hamstring curl. Good. So here I really like to think about squaring the hips as much as I can. So pulling right hip back, left hip forward, really strongly pulling in the navel to the spine, engaging pelvic floor so we're not just collapsing into the lower back. So still keeping it nice and tight. 3, 2, 1. Good, let's point those toes. And now we're going to reach back for our hip flexor stretch. So right arm against right thigh for leverage. Reaching back for your toes on the big toe side. Inhale, bring the toes into the pelvis. Exhale, kick it back. Just use 20% effort. Don't go crazy. Inhale, bring it in more. Exhale, kick it back. Inhale, bring it in more. Exhale, kick it back. If you can, you bring your fingers over the toes to point forward and you try and push those toes down to the ribs. Face the front. Inhale, exhale, gentle kick back. Hold it there, breathe. And slowly come down. Good, let's push back for that half split. So we want our backs nice and straight, windscreen wiper that foot. Really from the top of the leg, this hip rotation is what's causing the entire movement. It's not the knee, it's not the ankle, it's not the toes. Good, 3 more, 2, and last one. Good, okay, so coming upright, finding your balance. Maybe you might even need, a wall nearby you for this one. You can have a micro bend in your front leg if you need. Otherwise, extending this leg nice and straight, and from the get-go, square those hips. Push the right hip back, left hip forward. Suck up, lower abdominals, so really zip up the core. Arms up by the ears. Lengthen the spine, square the hips. Lengthen the spine, square the hips. Inhale, exhale, slowly coming forward. Straight flat back. If you need to micro bend the front leg, you do. Square the hips, lengthen the spine. Just keep telling yourself those 2 things. Come as low as you can where you can maintain control. All right, and if you lose balance, just get straight back into it. Lengthen the spine, square the hips. Good. Come as low as you can. Hold it there. Good. Balance, balance, balance. Good. And then we're going to go into our full split. So you might need your 2 blocks by you. I'm going to keep my front foot flexed and my back foot. And I'm going to square the hips. So right hip back, left hip forward. Keep the hands kind of in the center of the 2 legs and really stretch that back leg. Stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. Even if you have to hover quite high up off the floor,
That's what you want. You want square hips, you want a straight black leg. And then once you've really got that, you come down again, re-square the hips, re-straighten the back leg, and then point everything. Good. Feel where you're at, take a moment, breathe. If you're hovering up on blocks, you may need to come in and out of it just to rest the muscles because it is pretty intense. Otherwise, join me for a twist towards the right. So right hand goes back, finds the left outer thigh, and twists over to the right. So this is to help us make sure that we've got square hips with our split. Good. Inhale. And exhale. If you want more, you lean forward over the front leg. I bring my left elbow to the outside of my right leg, rest my head, and just take the arm back behind me for a twist. Good. Almost there. Inhale. And exhale, gently coming out of it. Let's bring the front foot into pigeon. Let's check that our left hip is still rolling forward. Good. And again, we're going to lift up the back leg, reach for the foot on the big toe side, and we're going to do those stretches. So inhale, exhale, bring the foot forward. So you want the fingers over the toes, pointing forward like the toes. Exhale, push down. Inhale, release. Exhale, push down. Inhale and exhale. See if you can hold it at your maximum point and just breathe. Good. And slowly release. Let's go into Mermaid. So you can cup your left armpit around your left foot and grab your hands in the front. Just grip the fingers and hold them there. If you need some more, you reach the right arm overhead and you grab the fingers that way, looking backwards, looking up. You can gently kick your left foot back into your left elbow pit. And if you want, you can go into a full grip. So I take my right hand, I grab my left toes, I reach my left arm through, and I grab same side by the big toe. Now I have to bend my arm and then lift my elbow up to the ceiling so that I can revolve. So even that movement on its own can be pretty painful in the shoulder joint, so you really don't want to push it. You can also use the strap to help you get into this position. Alright, from there you can either hold it here or you can reach your right arm up and over, wherever you grab, maybe onto your wrist. Walk your hands down to your foot so that you're holding your foot with both hands. Inhale, exhale, reach back, kick the leg up to the ceiling, and it's like you're trying to touch your foot to your head. Hold it there. Kick the leg up, like you're trying to extend it to the ceiling. And slowly release, one hand at a time. Good. If you want, you can just counter twist by twisting to the right, because that is a bit of a sort of twisted back bend. Really, really good. And let's just push up into a down dog. Breathe. Let's open the legs wider. Let's start to wind down. So I'm just going to take my left hand and reach it for my right ankle and then just pull myself through. So I'm just rotating up to the ceiling and change. Right hand to left ankle. Pull myself through. Good. We're going to drop onto the knees. We're going to go into a puppy pose. So we're just going to reach for the front of our mat. I like to actually wrap my fingers around my mat. Hips are over the knees. Dropping down into puppy. You've got your chest and your chin on the ground. Hold it there. Breathe. In puppy, if you want a little bit more, you can do little chin lifts where you lift the chin up and down a few times just to really work those muscles at the back of the spine. Good, and then slowly coming up. So you're in all fours, you've got your toes tucked. Inhale, exhale, hover. So we're just hovering to engage the abs to release the lower back. Inhale, exhale. We're just going to tap knee towards elbow, same leg, same arm. Wherever your knee gets to, if it doesn't quite touch your elbow, that's fine. One more each side. Good. Relax. Let's cross the legs, just coming to wrap your arms underneath your knees. And then I just want you to do almost like a cat. So we're rounding the spine, tucking the pelvis, and just kind of decompressing wherever we compressed in the lower back. And then inhale, arch like you're doing a cow tilt. Push the chest forward. Exhale again, cat. Inhale, cow. One more time, cat. And cow. And let's just slowly roll back onto the mat. Kick the legs over into plow pose. You can just kind of walk your shoulder blades closer together. I like to use my hands on my lower back for support. Just hold it there. If you want, you can reach the hands towards the ankles and kind of pull them over more. Just breathe. And the hands go into the floor to help you with balance. You're going to lift one leg up to the sky. If that feels good, the other, keep pushing the floor away from you into candle. Push the hips forward. Feel the stretch at the back of the neck. Hold it there. If you want, you can try and reach one hand to each side. And then slowly, hands come down, legs come down, and then the hands act as brakes as you roll your hips back down to the mat. Bend the knees, place them down, elbows into the floor. We're just going to push up onto the crown of the head for fish, which is the counter pose. Open the rib cage up to the ceiling. And then slowly unwind. You're just going to hug the knees into the chest and then take them over to the right side for a gentle twist. Knees down to the right, looking over to the left, and twist. Breathe, relax. Inhale. Exhale, lift your legs back up to the center and change sides. Legs to the left, looking to the right. So this was a pretty intense class with a focus on backbends, and we really have worked deeply into many of our muscles. So let it go wherever you got to today, whatever you achieved, whatever you didn't achieve, just let it all go. And just give yourself a big pat on the back for showing up and giving that 100% and being present for these 60 minutes. Not thinking about anything else. And giving yourself the gift of the present moment. Exhale, bring your legs back up, give yourself a hug. Stretch it out, a nice big stretch. And then come into your Shavasana. Close your eyes and stay as long as you need to. Hope you enjoyed this workout.